curiosity, I'd like your opinion on what you think money is, like defined, like in terms of it's what? Somebody's what?
It's somebody's what? Money is a method in which you pay for things, in which you sort of, it's an agreed upon, maybe I'm talking about currency here, but it is a sort of something that represents what is agreed upon value, and you exchange it for other things of value.
Welcome to Egypt. This is where it all began. Roughly 5,000 years ago, the Egyptians started using gold and silver as their predominant form of currency. But it was not yet money. The pieces of gold and silver that they were using were odd sizes and weights, odd purities, so it still was not interchangeable, where each unit is the same as the next. This meant that nothing really had a price yet. You couldn't put a price of so many coins on something because they didn't have coins yet. Trade was still difficult. It was still a guessing game when it came to the exchange of values. One of the reasons that we are in the financial mess that we are today globally is that people do not understand the difference between currency and money. Currency is a medium of exchange, a unit of account. It is portable, durable, divisible, and something called fungible. Fungible means that each unit is the same as the next unit. $1 in my pocket buys the same amount as $1 in your pocket. Money is all of those things plus a store of value over a long period of time. Even financial planners, bankers, your accountants, they don't understand the difference between currency and money. The currency in your pocket is a medium of exchange. It's a unit of account because it's got numbers on it. It's somewhat durable, it's portable, it's divisible in that you can make change, and it's fungible. $1 in my pocket buys the same amount as $1 in your pocket. But because governments can print more and more and more of it and dilutes the currency supply, it's continually transferring wealth out of your pocket, out of your bank account, to the government and to the banking system. The reason that gold and silver are the optimum form of money is because of their properties. It's an easy medium of exchange because gold and silver store a large amount of value in a very small area. It's a unit of account. Pure gold has the same value all over the planet. So an ounce of gold buys the same amount here in Egypt as it would in China or in the United States. It's durable. The same gold that Egyptians were using in trade 5,000 years ago is still here with us today. It does not corrode. It's divisible. You can make change with it. It's very portable. You could use something like oil as money. It's just that you can't carry around a barrel of oil on your back. It's fungible. Pure gold is the same wherever it is on Earth. Pure silver is the same wherever it is. It's limited in quantity. That's the reason that it maintains its purchasing power. Governments cannot print it. Over the last 5,000 years, only gold and silver have maintained their purchasing power. There have been thousands upon thousands of fiat currencies that are unbacked by gold or silver, and they have all gone to zero. It's a 100% failure rate.
Right, but to me, see, money represents somebody's labor. So I don't think it's right, I mean, in my personal opinion, for any political movement to try to decide where somebody's money should go if that person doesn't give it out of goodwill, like you said. That's why I think...
Well, wait a second. Now, let me ask you this. How can, money isn't necessarily representative of someone's labor. What if you inherit it?
Inheritance tax, the estate tax. After you die, the government comes in, and if you have a sufficient amount of money, they basically take half of it. The inheritance tax is probably the single worst tax we have. Now, what am I talking about? Because when most people talk about the estate tax, they say, oh, you know, it's just for the rich, right? Because only 2 out of 1,000 actually pay the estate tax. In reality, the super rich don't even pay that big an inheritance tax because they use the tax code, they use the loopholes, they use complicated and expensive structures and trusts that involve lots of lawyers and accountants, and they devise ways around the tax. The people who are most likely to pay the estate tax are the smaller businessman. Guy owns a business, maybe has a couple of partners, not a publicly traded company, privately held business, right? Let's say that business is worth $50 million, right? Because the estate tax kicks in, I know, somewhere above $10 million, right? So let's say you got a $50 million business, you got a big estate tax coming. Well, if a business is worth $50 million, that doesn't mean that there's a $50 million pile of cash there and you could just peel off $20 million and give it to the IRS. A lot of the assets are not liquid. Some of them are non-cash. Let's say you have goodwill. That's your reputation in the marketplace. I mean, you can't sell that really. I mean, it's not a physical, tangible asset. It's intangible, but it has value. You get taxed on it. But then you have property and equipment that you need to operate the business, right? You can't really just liquidate that. Maybe you have some inventory, but you need that. There's probably some receivables, but you don't actually have the cash. I mean, so how much cash does it actually have? Probably not much. So what happens? They've got to sell the business to raise the money, to pay the tax. And who is the most likely buyer for a business where the principal owner just died, right? Who's most likely to buy it? Who's probably going to give the heirs the most amount of money? A larger competitor, right? He's going to outbid anybody else who wants to operate the business independently. Why? Well, because the larger competitor, A, sees an opportunity to take out a competitor, right? That's good. Less competition, easier for me. Raise my prices, charge the consumer a little bit more. That's number one. But number two, you're going to have economies of scale. You're going to have synergies. You're going to be able to take a lot of the revenue from that business and just add it to your revenue and get rid of a lot of the expenses, a lot of the overhead. What is usually the biggest overhead? Wages, the labor. So what happens is a guy dies, and now because there's an estate tax, the business has to be liquidated to a larger competitor, and all of the workers get fired. Yes, the heirs still end up with a lot of money. They still get a big payday, right? They still make a bunch of money. They don't make as much money, but they still get a check, right? But their employees, the workers, they get a pink slip instead of a check. In fact, one of the biggest advocates of the estate tax is the hypocrite Warren Buffett. And why does Warren Buffett like the estate tax so much? Because he gets to buy up a lot of these businesses where the owner dies and now they can't afford to pay the estate tax. See, he's the big business that gets to gobble up the competition. He grows his market share and can charge more money, right? So that's part of the hypocrisy of Warren Buffett.
Well, what if you inherit it?
Well, then you're taking somebody else's money, but that should still be your decision because in the end you will labor with that money, correct? Just like if somebody was given 5 cows and 2 chickens, right? That person is given the chickens and cows, but it'll eventually deplete if he doesn't labor on those livestock. So money to me is a representation of somebody's labor, and if we go a little further back, it's a representation of, I guess you could say, a commodity. But in the end, I don't think any political movement, I think all these political movements should be shut down, and if people decide if, they want to put money towards waste management or something, they should be allowed to decide that on their own. Why should they need somebody to tell them that their money should go here? Just like if the government told us we should buy iPads or something, like we wouldn't want that. We would want our own decision to decide if an iPad works for our life or not. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion about, all political movements. That's why I listen to them and I just laugh when I'm listening, because it's just your idea. I mean, it could be good, could be bad. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Ed, you got to forgive me here, buddy. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I'm sorry. I just literally have no idea what you're talking about. What is your point? I mean, what is your point what is it that you're arguing? Are you trying to make some type of point that you have a problem with a certain policy?
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that liberty is the only movement that actually makes sense. There is no other movement.
What is liberty?
People should be allowed.
What does that mean? Liberty.
make this video just to explain, where those people, these conservatives, these Republicans are coming from. And basically what they believe is that the state is not a vehicle, is not the proper vehicle for realizing or advancing individual human beings. That is, Republicans, conservatives would want to say, hey, look, the state, all it should do is protect our property, protect our borders, build our roads, and ensure safety standards. Other than that, they should not be in the business of dictating who wins, what kind of business should be made, how much money you have, these types of things. And the reason why is, if you go back to the Founding Fathers, they wanted to create a system where each individual person could be free from the overreach of government to pursue their own conception of the good life. And so when you grew up in America, the American dream is, hey, you can do anything, you can be anybody, you can work in any type of career path. The government is not going to hinder your ability to do what you want to do. It's going to give you the opportunity, an equal playing field, to go out there, study what you want to study, start a fresh business, not be burdened by taxes and by social requirements, so that you can realize your conception of the good life. And Americans, particularly Republicans and conservatives, are very much averse to anyone who says, hey, look, the federal government should step in and intervene in any sector or any section of something that they consider to be individual rights, individuals' ability to choose and to engage in those types of activities that they want to engage in. And crucially, conservatives and Republicans generally think that the taking of taxes, the government coming in and taking what you've rightfully earned to disseminate it out into the public, is unjust. Now, some conservatives and Republicans believe it's unjust purely because they think the government does not have a right to what I've earned. Many other Republicans and conservatives also believe that it's unjust because they think the government is not a very appropriate apparatus for redistributing wealth and for providing social goods. Many conservatives and Republicans would say, leave that to local charities, leave that to churches, leave that to social groups within your own little neighborhoods that you can police better, that you have a stake in. So conservatives and Republicans would say it's unjust for the state to come in and take away their property that they've rightfully earned, A, because it's just unjust as a principle, I've earned it, it's mine, and or B, because the government is not a very effective or efficient.
There is no other movement.
What is liberty?
People should be allowed.
What does that mean? Liberty.
Well, that
The society that puts equality before freedom will end up with neither. The society that puts freedom before equality will end up with a great measure of both.
Basically liberals in American society. What do you mean by calling them anointed or self-anointed?
That's right. There are people who seriously believe that they are wiser and nobler than others. The way to improve society is to have the government force people to follow what the anointed want, rather than have let people do what they themselves want to do. And there are all kinds of fiascos that follow in the wake of this kind of notion.
When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on? Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their self-interest. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Conservatives are routinely blamed for not caring about people. And yet you say just the opposite is true, that it's liberals who care about their vision of how the world should be, but not about real-life human beings.
Absolutely. I think the busing thing was a classic example. You would be hard-pressed to show how black people fight for any other people were benefited by this. But the liberals loved it. It enabled them to be morally superior to those who were fighting against busing. And the evidence, one way or the other, really did not interest them.
I don't know how many of you have ever heard of a wonderful description of government that was made by a French economist by the name of Frederick Bastiat about 150 years ago. He said, government is that fiction where
whereby everybody believes that he can live at the expense of everybody else. And that is the free lunch myth. The myth that somehow or other government can provide goods and services, can spend money at nobody's expense.
Liberty.
Well, that means freedom of choice, and the only reason why we have a government is to protect us from criminals and from injustice.
Who do you think printed that money?
Decide anything else.
Hey, dude, who do you think printed that money?
What?
The money that you've been talking about? Who do you think printed it?
Who do I think printed it?
Yeah, you just said government should just to protect us. Well, they also printed your money.
But because governments can print more and more and more of it and dilutes the currency supply, it's continually transferring wealth out of your pocket, out of your bank account, to the government and to the banking system.
The money that you've been talking about? Who do you think printed it?
Who do I think printed it?
Yeah, you just said government should just to protect us. Well, they also printed your money. They also give it value.
But because governments can print more and more and more of it and dilutes the currency supply, it's continually transferring wealth out of your pocket, out of your bank account, to the government and to the banking system.
Not there. I mean, look, yeah, you didn't choose to get born into this society. You just were. But why stop there? Why not make everything free?
Well, you can't do that. It's impossible. Somebody has to work.
But why not? Why not just make people have the ability to just conjure things up?
No, you can't do that, because then how are you going to give somebody an incentive?
I don't know how many of you have ever heard of a wonderful description of government that was made by a French economist by the name of Frederick Bastiat about 150 years ago. He said, government is that fiction whereby everybody believes that he can live at the expense of everybody else. And that is the free lunch myth. The myth that somehow or other government can provide goods and services, can spend money at nobody's expense.
To work. It's just like...
Well, here's my point. You can't do what you're talking about either. Everybody can't have their own currency, or it doesn't work.
No, we can have a currency, but the currency should be a currency from the ground's earth, something that can't be manipulated. That's a true currency.
You don't think gold can be manipulated?
No, it can't be manipulated.
The reason that gold and silver are the optimum form of money is because of their properties. It's an easy medium of exchange because gold and silver store a large amount of value in a very small area. It's a unit of account. Pure gold has the same value all over the planet. So an ounce of gold buys the same amount here in Egypt as it would in China or in the United States. It's durable. The same gold that Egyptians were using in trade 5,000 years ago is still here with us today. It does not corrode. It's divisible. You can make change with it. It's very portable. You could use something like oil as money. It's just that you can't carry around a barrel of oil on your back. It's fungible. Pure gold is the same wherever it is on Earth. Pure silver is the same wherever it is. It's limited in quantity. That's the reason that it maintains its purchasing power. Governments cannot print it. Over the last 5,000 years, only gold and silver have maintained their purchasing power. There have been thousands upon thousands of fiat currencies that are unbacked by gold or silver, and they have all gone to zero. It's a 100% failure rate.
Gold and iron. Or let's just say water.
Well, I mean, in reality, there's worth something.
Trees. I mean, do you understand there is no intrinsic value to gold? It's just that at one point people all accepted, yeah, I'll take payment in gold. That's all. That's all paper money is. It's just an agreement amongst people that we're going to accept it. That's all.
Well, no, because
it's limited in quantity. That's the reason that it maintains its purchasing power. Governments cannot print it. Over the last 5,000 years, only gold and silver have maintained their purchasing.
There's no intrinsic value to gold. It's just that at one point people all accepted, yeah, I'll take payment in gold. That's all. That's all paper money is. It's just an agreement amongst people that we're going to accept it. That's all.
Well, no, because prices do go up and down for us. Like prices have been going up for us in oil and in food and in all commodities, because when money is abundant, basically the commodity will go up in price because there'll be more money chasing after that same commodity. So eventually things do have to recede in price. I mean, everything has to recede in price. But if you keep the money printing game going on, things will get so out of control.
So you're hoping for more deflation. Is that it?
What this article writes: inflation can obviously be a problem when it exceeds a manageable level, say 4%. Why 4% here? And begins to erode consumer purchasing power. Well, what do you mean begins? Your purchasing power doesn't begin to erode when inflation is 4%. It erodes when inflation is 1%. It erodes when inflation is 2%. Your purchasing power is always being eroded when inflation is a positive number, right? So it doesn't begin to be eroded when inflation is 4%, but it's not eroded when it's 3%. That is a lot of inflation. In fact, if you recall, when Nixon imposed wage and price controls, it was when inflation hit 4%. It was so bad. Inflation was so bad at 4% that Nixon imposed price controls. That didn't mean that 3% inflation wasn't bad or 2%. It just meant that 4% was horrific. By the time it got to that point, it was, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's so bad. But it's not that 3 or 2% was good. You're still losing purchasing power. How about falling prices? Isn't it better when you gain purchasing power, when you save your money, and then when you go to spend it, you could buy more? Isn't that a good thing when your wages gain value, when the money that you get paid is worth more? That's all good stuff. That's all positive stuff. But you have this huge effort. Articles like this, economists all around the world trying to dumb us down, get us to believe the asinine proposition that rising prices are good for us, that economic growth and rising prices go hand in hand, and if prices aren't rising fast enough, economies can't go, and we have lost decades. Nonsense. Hey, well, we got some good news, right? Oil prices are up 72 cents, 104.50, headed to $105 a barrel. Why don't the news stations, if inflation is so good for us and we need more of it, when they report about oil prices going up, why don't they report about it as good news? Why don't they just say, hey, good news, we got a lot of bad news on the news, but we do have some good news to report. Oil prices are up again. Consumers can expect to pay more at the pump when they need to fill up. That's great news because it means the inflation rate's going to be picking up. It also means that a lot of other merchandise that has to be transported is shipped they're going to have to raise their prices, and that's good news for all of us. All of you consumers out there, go out there and spend because prices aren't getting any cheaper. So we'll all go out there and spend, and that's going to be great news for the economy. So, congratulations to you, America. Oil prices are going up. And, in more good news, food prices are up too. Yes, everything you need to eat is more expensive, and thank God for that. Because if it wasn't, well, it could be an economic disaster. We could be Japan. Those poor Japanese, having to pay the same price for food year after year, that really is tough. Not here in America. No, we have a good economy. We know that we can buy food and it's going to be more expensive next year than this year. And we can be rest assured that we're not going to suffer from deflation. No lost decade here. 855-4SHIFT. Mike is calling in. He's in Northern California. Mike, you're up.
Yeah, I have a couple of points. With respect to falling prices, it seems like when they talk about deflation, they talk about this as a monolithic thing. I work in the electronics industry, and falling prices just take out the weak, and the strong are still profitable, and they hire more people. So I don't see why that's an issue. And then with respect to falling prices, then people have more money, they can buy more stuff. So again, it creates more jobs rather than destroys jobs. I don't understand.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this article does point out that myth too, that if prices are falling, then businesses, can't survive. They can't raise their prices. Well, first of all, why do businesses need to raise their prices? And most businesses, right? The goal of the entrepreneur is to lower your price. Why do entrepreneurs want to lower prices? I mentioned that quote on this show before from Thomas Edison, right, when he was electrifying cities with electricity, and he said that his goal was to make electricity so inexpensive that only the rich would burn candles. So here was an entrepreneur trying to sell electricity, but he wanted to lower his prices. Why did he want to make electricity cheaper? So he could have more customers. The goal of a businessman is to figure out how to cut costs so you can lower prices and get more customers. That is the goal of business. And thank God that's the goal, because that's why businesses help consumers, because consumers want low prices. And when they talk about businesses can't survive low prices, they forget that businesses also pay lower prices when their costs go down. Costs are prices. One person's price is another person's cost. So when prices are falling, that means businesses are seeing a reduction in their cost structure. And when their costs are going down, they can lower their prices that they charge their consumers. It's a win-win. But somehow these idiot economists have said that it's a lose proposition, that everybody loses when prices fall and costs fall. And so we have to make sure that everything goes up. And these are the same guys that are telling us that what the Federal Reserve doing is good, right? That the stimulus is good, that the economy is going to recover. No, this is the kind of economic ignorance that is out there among the people who are supposed to be the best and the brightest. They are completely clueless.
Maybe I'm talking about, what if you inherited? Tell me here, buddy. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I'm sorry. I just literally have no idea what you're talking about.
There is no other movement.
What is liberty? What does that mean? Liberty.
Anything else?
Hey, dude, who do you think printed that money?
What?
The money that you've been talking about? Who do you think printed it? The government should just to protect us. Well, they also printed your money. Printed your money. They also give it value. Printed your money. They also give it value. Stop there. Why not make everything free? Wait. What's the difference between gold and iron? Let's just say water. Trees.
Game going on, things will get so out of control.
So you're hoping for more deflation, is that it?
More gold. Yeah, everything down.
No, I'm going to do iron, buddy.
Well, I mean,
I'm going to do iron.
You can do whatever you want.
I'm going to do iron. I'm going to do iron. I'm going to do iron. And in fact, everyone except for you who listens to this show, we're all going to do iron. The idea that gold has some type of intrinsic value, no, it's people have decided. Tulips. It's tulips, folks.
The kind of economic, ignorance that is out there among the people who are supposed to be the best and the brightest. They are completely clueless.